Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Native English Podcast. I'm Michael Reed, coming to you from New York City. It is great to have you here today, whether you're listening on your morning commute or relaxing at home. I'm glad you're joining me for another English learning session today. We're talking about something really practical and useful. We're going to learn how to negotiate in English. Now, negotiating might sound a bit formal or business-like, but actually, we negotiate all the time in daily life. Maybe you're talking about rent with a landlord. Perhaps you're discussing prices at a market, or maybe you're just trying to agree with a friend about where to eat dinner. These are all negotiations, and knowing the right phrases can really help you feel more confident. In this episode, you'll learn some essential expressions for negotiating. We'll cover phrases that help you make offers, respond to proposals, and reach agreements. These expressions are super useful whether you're in a professional situation or just handling everyday conversations. They'll help you sound more natural and confident when you need to work out a deal or come to an agreement with someone. All right, let's jump into Lucy's story. Listen carefully and try to notice the negotiating phrases she uses.
I'm not really the best negotiator in the world, but sometimes you just have to sit down and work things out. That is exactly what happened to me last month when I needed to renew my apartment lease. I've been living in a small one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn for about a year now. It is nothing fancy, but it is close to the subway and the rent is reasonable when my lease was about to end. My landlord, Mr. Chen, called me to discuss the new terms. We met at a coffee shop near my building on a Saturday morning. After some small talk, he got down to business. "All right, Lucy," he said. "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I can give you a break on the rent if you're willing to sign a 2-year lease this time instead of 1 year." I wasn't sure about committing to 2 years, so I asked, "Well, what kind of break are we talking about here?" He smiled and explained, "Instead of raising your rent by 10%, I'll only raise it by 5%. It is a win-win situation. You save money, and I get the security of knowing you'll stay for 2 years. I thought about it for a moment. The offer wasn't bad, but I wanted to try something different, so I made a counter-proposal. "How about this?" I said. "What if I sign a 1-year lease, but you only raise the rent by 6%? Mr. Chen shook his head. "No, I can't make that kind of deal. But here is what I can do, and this is my final offer. I'll pay for your internet service for the first 6 months, plus the 5% increase with a 2-year lease." I looked at him and said, "You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Chen." He laughed. "So do we have a deal?" I thought about it for just a few seconds. The internet was costing me $60 a month, so that was actually a pretty good offer. "Okay, it is a deal," I said. I have to admit I could have tried to bargain him down a little more, but honestly, I was happy with the agreement. The rent increase was reasonable, and free internet for 6 months was a nice bonus. All I had to do now was sign on the dotted line, and my apartment would be secure for another 2 years.
Now, let's go through the story and look at all those useful negotiating expressions. These phrases will really help you when you need to discuss terms, make offers, or reach agreements in English. The story starts with Lucy saying, "I'm not really the best negotiator in the world." This is a humble way to talk about yourself. When you say, "I'm not the best at something," you're admitting that you're not an expert. It is a way to be modest. You can use this phrase in lots of situations. For example, you might say, "I'm not the best cook in the world, but I can make a decent pasta." Or, "I'm not the best singer, but I enjoy karaoke." It is friendly and honest, and it makes you sound relatable to other people. Next, Lucy mentions that she needs to renew her lease. Let me explain this expression. A lease is a rental contract or agreement. When you rent an apartment, you typically sign a lease that says how long you'll stay and how much you'll pay. To renew something means to extend it or continue it for another period of time. So when you renew a lease, you're agreeing to stay in the apartment for another term, usually another year. You can also renew other things like a library book, a magazine subscription, or even your driver's license. The key idea is that you're continuing something for more time in the story. Lucy says her landlord got down to business. This is a really useful phrase. When someone gets down to business, they stop the casual conversation and start talking about the main topic or the serious matter. Imagine you're in a meeting and people are chatting about the weather and their weekend. Then someone says, "All right, let's get down to business." That means it is time to focus on work. You can use this in many situations. For instance, after coffee, we got down to business and discussed the project. It is a natural way to transition from small talk to important topics. The landlord then uses a common negotiating phrase, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do." This expression is perfect for negotiations when you say this. You're about to make an offer or propose a deal. It signals to the other person that you're ready to present your terms. You'll hear this a lot in business situations, but also when bargaining at markets or discussing deals with friends. For example, a car salesman might say, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll give you a discount if you buy today." It creates a sense that you're offering something special or valuable. Next comes another key phrase, "give you a break on the rent." A break, in this context, means a reduction or a discount. When someone gives you a break on something, they're lowering the price or making things easier for you. You might hear, "The shop gave me a break on the price because the item had a small scratch." Or, "My professor gave me a break on the deadline because I was sick." It is a friendly, casual way to talk about getting a discount or special treatment. You can also ask for a break. "Can you give me a break on the price?" Lucy then asks, "What kind of break are we talking about here?" This is such a natural negotiating question. When you say, "What kind of X are we talking about?" you're asking for specific details or more information. It shows you're interested but want to know exactly what is being offered. You can use this in many situations. For example, if someone says they'll give you a discount, you might ask, "What kind of discount are we talking about here?" Or if a friend suggests going on a trip, you might say, "What kind of budget are we talking about here?" It is a polite way to ask for clarification before making a decision. The landlord mentions a win-win situation. This is a popular phrase in negotiations and business. A win-win situation means both people benefit or both sides get something good from the deal. Nobody loses. It is the ideal outcome in any negotiation. For example, "We both got what we wanted, so it was a win-win situation." Or, "If you help me move and I help you paint your room, that is win-win." Using this phrase shows that you're thinking about fairness and mutual benefit, which makes negotiations feel more positive and cooperative. When Lucy wasn't satisfied with the first offer, she made a counterproposal. A counterproposal is your response to someone else's offer. The word counter here means against or in response to. So when someone proposes something and you suggest something different, that is a counterproposal. In negotiations, this is very common. The first offer is rarely the final agreement. You might say, "I made a counterproposal that included different terms." Or, "He made a counter-proposal asking for a lower price." It is a formal but clear way to show you're negotiating back. Lucy introduces her counter-proposal by saying, "How about this?" This is a casual, friendly way to suggest an idea or alternative plan. It is perfect for negotiations because it sounds cooperative, not aggressive. You can use this phrase whenever you want to propose something different. For example, "How about this? You take the morning shift and I'll take the afternoon," or "How about this? We split the cost 50-50. It makes your suggestion sound reasonable and open to discussion. The landlord responds with, "I can't make that kind of deal." When someone says they can't make a deal, they're refusing your offer or saying they can't agree to your terms. The phrase, "that kind of deal," refers to the specific agreement you proposed. It is a polite way to say no in a negotiation. You might hear, "Sorry, I can't make that kind of deal because the price is too low." It is much softer than just saying no, and it keeps the conversation going. Then the landlord uses another important phrase, "Here is what I can do." This expression comes after refusing an offer, but before making a new offer, it signals that even though you said no to the previous proposal, you're willing to compromise or suggest something else. It keeps negotiations moving forward in a positive way. For example, "I can't lower the price that much, but here is what I can do. I can include free delivery." Or, "I can't meet on Friday, but here is what I can do. I can meet on Thursday afternoon." It shows flexibility and willingness to find a solution. The landlord also says, "This is my final offer." When someone makes a final offer, they're saying this is the last deal they'll propose. They're not going to negotiate any further. It is a way to create urgency and encourage the other person to make a decision. You'll hear this in many negotiations. "That is my final offer. Take it or leave it." Or, "I'm giving you my final offer because we need to decide today." Be careful with this phrase, though. Sometimes people say it is their final offer, but they're still willing to negotiate a bit more. It is a strategy to see if the other person will accept. Lucy responds with, "You drive a hard bargain." This is a colorful expression that means someone is a tough negotiator or someone is making negotiations difficult. It is usually said with a bit of humor or respect. When you drive a hard bargain, you're not giving in easily. You're holding firm to your terms. For example, "The seller drove a hard bargain, but we finally agreed on a price." Or, "My son drives a hard bargain when negotiating his allowance." It is a nice way to acknowledge that someone is good at negotiating without sounding upset about it. Finally, Lucy says, "It is a deal." This simple phrase means you agree to the terms. It is the moment you accept the offer and the negotiation is complete. When you say "it is a deal," you're committing to the agreement. You can also say "we have a deal" or "deal." For example, after negotiating a price, you might shake hands and say, "Okay, it is a deal." Or if you wash the dishes and I cook dinner, "it is a deal." It is a clear, decisive way to end a negotiation successfully. Lucy also mentions she could have tried to bargain him down. To bargain someone down means to negotiate for a lower price or better terms. You're trying to get the other person to reduce their demands or offer you more. For example, "I bargained the seller down from $200 to $150, or she tried to bargain me down, but I held firm on the price." It is a common phrase when talking about price negotiations, especially at markets, yard sales, or when buying used items. At the end, Lucy says she just had to sign on the dotted line. This is a classic phrase about finalizing agreements. The dotted line in a contract is literally where you put your signature. When you sign on the dotted line, you're making the agreement official. For example, After months of negotiation, we finally signed on the dotted line and bought the house. Or all you need to do is sign on the dotted line and the car is yours. Even when there isn't an actual dotted line, people use this expression to mean completing or finalizing a deal. These expressions are incredibly useful in real life. Whether you're negotiating rent, discussing prices, or making agreements with friends, these phrases will help you sound confident and natural. The key is to be polite but firm, to listen carefully, and to know when to compromise and when to stand your ground.
I'm not really the best negotiator in the world, but sometimes you just have to sit down and work things out. That is exactly what happened to me last month when I needed to renew my apartment lease. I've been living in a small one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn for about a year now. It is nothing fancy, but it is close to the subway and the rent is reasonable. When my lease was about to end, my landlord, Mr. Chen, called me to discuss the new terms. We met at a coffee shop near my building on a Saturday morning. After some small talk, he got down to business. "All right, Lucy," he said. "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I can give you a break on the rent if you're willing to sign a 2-year lease this time instead of 1 year." I wasn't sure about committing to 2 years, so I asked, "Well, what kind of break are we talking about here?" He smiled and explained, "Instead of raising your rent by 10%, I'll only raise it by 5%. It is a win-win situation. You save money, and I get the security of knowing you'll stay for 2 years." I thought about it for a moment. The offer wasn't bad, but I wanted to try something different. So I made a counter-proposal. "How about this?" I said. "What if I sign a 1-year lease, but you only raise the rent by 6%? Mr. Chen shook his head. "No, I can't make that kind of deal, but here is what I can do. And this is my final offer. I'll pay for your internet service for the first 6 months, plus the 5% increase with a 2-year lease." I looked at him and said, "You drive a hard bargain, Mr. Chen." He laughed. "So do we have a deal?" I thought about it for just a few seconds. The internet was costing me $60 a month, so that was actually a pretty good offer. "Okay, it is a deal," I said. I have to admit, I could have tried to bargain him down a little more, but honestly, I was happy with the agreement. The rent increase was reasonable, and free internet for 6 months was a nice bonus. All I had to do now was sign on the dotted line, and my apartment would be secure for another 2 years.
Thanks so much for joining me today on Native English Podcast. We covered some really practical negotiating phrases that you can use in many different situations. Remember, negotiating isn't just for business. It is something we do in everyday life when we're discussing prices, making agreements, or working out plans with others. The phrases we learned today will help you sound more confident and natural when you need to reach an agreement with someone. Try practicing these expressions in your own life. Maybe you'll negotiate with a shopkeeper, discuss plans with a friend, or even work out terms for a new apartment. Just like Lucy did, keep in mind that good negotiation is about finding solutions that work for everyone. It is not about winning or losing, it is about communication, compromise, and respect. When you use these phrases with a friendly tone, you'll find that people are often happy to work with you to find a fair agreement. I hope today's episode was helpful and gave you some new tools for your English conversations. Keep practicing, keep learning, and don't be afraid to use these phrases in real situations. That is how you'll really improve your English from New York City. I'm Michael Reed. Thanks for listening, take care, and I'll see you in the next episode. Keep learning every day.